Hopefully this thing is on. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic weekend. I know I've had an awesome weekend. We're going to be talking about basically everything that took place at Moparmegeddon this past Friday. And if you couldn't make it, man, I'm bummed out for you. Because we set no less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records were set. Pretty cool stuff. So I'm going to dive right into that here in just a minute. Get all of my beverages lined up, stacked up, racked up, ready to roll. And I am not kidding around when I say we crushed some records at Moparmegeddon. Always a fun event. We're always the first of the year for Houston Raceway Park. Get the place kicked off and kicked off in the right way. And the beauty of it, never been to a track rental. These events are awesome because, well, you get the whole place to yourself. It's like having the playground basically just laid out for you. That being said, playground's no good unless you've got great folks working it. I want to send a big shout out to Austin and all the crew over at Houston Raceway Park. Did a phenomenal job getting that thing ready and keeping that track prepped. Because based on the conditions that we had, guys, it was a nightmare for those folks to keep that track sticky. I'm going to go into that here in a minute. Let me get everything queued up here. But when I say we crushed some records for my early birds, hopefully this comes up on the screen. Is that showing? Oh, no, it's not coming up. Let's just say stock boost Hellcat record on 93 Octane. We're just going to start out with that one. 10:10 in the quarter mile. She almost went a 10:0, guys. If you haven't seen the videos, they are up. So if you haven't had a chance to check those out, Matt Fikak with Moe's sent me over some videos of the guys in their record-setting runs as well. If you run into a weird issue with playback on that, I really don't know why it's doing that. Sometimes they play perfectly fine, other times they don't. Just a weird way that the file's transferred over or processed. I don't know. You go down to the scroll bar, you can see all the video is there. But anyway, hopefully that doesn't mess with you too much. But again, I don't know if that's going to even show up. Oh, man, it's not showing up. There we kind of go. Why does it do that? I hate that. Anyway, getting back to it, let's start going down the list. I don't want to hold up on this too much, but let me paint the picture for you as it sits. So, starting out the day, early on, DA was negative 1,600. Pretty intense density altitude. The main issue that we had, though, coming into it and why track prep was so tough for the guys was because we had a wind blowing in from the east that was keeping the track basically frigid. So it was just enough of a wind, and the temperature was about 41 degrees Fahrenheit. It was just enough of a wind going over the track with nothing but cloud cover overhead. It was just really tough getting heat into the track. But again, big props to Houston Raceway Park for keeping that track well prepped and helping a lot of us set some national records. So that'll give you an idea about what we were up against. Lots of hard work went into that. So I can just tell you that a lot of folks were a little bit on the frustrated side initially, I know, but man, when the track's cold, there's just nothing you can really do about it, especially with as much power as some of these cars were making. Hold on, I gotta get my AC working. Come here, air conditioner. Start condition some air for me over here. All right. Let me check in with you guys real quick, and then we will dive right in. Michael Corleone is in with the flex. I like it. Chuck's in. Sean saying, what's up, B? The car looked good. Thank you. White Knuckles in, say, what up, Bryce? Some of those Rams were moving. Yeah, you ain't lying. Shift is saying, what's up? Got the flex in the shades. I like it. Lots of awesome videos posted. Yeah, Z saying it was a good day. Yeah, I bet it was a good day for Mr. Z. Roy Morgan saying, good try, Grumby. Thank you very much. Z, one of our repeating national record setters. Probably the most coveted in Hellcat land. We're going to get to you here in just a minute, big guy. So let's start off with some of the, well, I posted the videos of the trucks. So I want to give a shout out to some guys. These are the guys that were either set national records or were in contention. So you'll see some of those videos that I've posted, but let me just run through these. Rick Spillman set the fastest NA Hemi Ram, so fastest naturally aspirated Hemi Ram. That truck went a 969 at 138 miles an hour, basically. So Rick Spillman, naturally aspirated, fastest naturally aspirated Hemi Ram. Mike Fikek basically put a second nail in the coffin of his boost-only TRX record, running the fastest boost-only TRX, Z-Tune, by the way, with a 1005 at 134 miles per hour. Jason Daria, I hope I'm saying that right, running a 6.2 in nitrous, fastest Gen 3 Hemi outright, with a 941 at 145 miles per hour. That thing was sick on the top end of the track. Kyle Tingle went a 1066, fastest naturally aspirated stock short block 5.7 liter truck. The truck trapped 124 and a half, actually over 124 and a half miles per hour. Let's see, and Josh Saunier went with a Pro Charge with nitrous. That's that white truck. That thing is sick. Went a 1011 at 139.67. That's kind of an honorable mention because that truck is way faster than that video or that the ET gives it credit for. Extremely impressive, and he's still in the process of getting it dialed in. Once that truck's dialed in, it's going to be a contender for sure. And then Zach Wilcox, want to send a shout out to him as well. He's got that red RT Ram, naturally aspirated truck, went an 1138 at 117 and change, pulling the front tires off the ground. That truck is a lot prettier in person again than that video gives it credit for. So, and then you've got yours truly. That's right. Little Miss Chandelier stepped up on the main stage and shocked him with a 10.10 at 132.79 miles an hour. 10.10 with a 7. So into a 1010. She made it perfect on both sides of the dot, baby. Bam, bam. Hurt some feelings on that. That is a 93 octane. No race mix, no nothing, no tuned on whatever. It is the same tune that we go to dinner with in that car. 93 octane setup by this guy right here. So that is one. Let me count this again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 national records. Oh, and you thought I'd forget about Z, didn't you? Z makes it a lucky number 7. Z dropped a 788 at about a Brazilian miles an hour with that nasty orange Charger. So there you have it. Grand total of 7 national records set. Some of those records are going to be tough to mess with. I can tell you that, that everybody deserves a lot of credit for the work, time, effort, sweat, tears, money, and everything else they sacrifice to meet these goals for themselves. I know that, there was a lot of folks frantically pining over data and making sure that every little possible aspect of what they can make worked. And it's not like they were going into this with the easiest of feats. I talked about the track conditions earlier on. The biggest issue that we were looking at with the track conditions, again, was keeping the track sticky fairly far out from the starting line. The thing is, you got to remember that a lot of these cars, when they come on, they're coming on hard right on the launch, but they're carrying power, especially the turbo cars and trucks, are carrying power fairly farther out. They may be soft on the launch, but then pour on the power later on. And if the track isn't hot or sticky, that's when basically you're starting to light the tires up. It's like a second launch with those cars. So anyway, a lot of guys were up against that. You're up against, well, incredibly deep DAs. Again, we started out the day with negative 600 DA. By the way, Chandelier, just so you know, started off the day with a 10.127 right off the bat, full tank, well, full as in half a tank of gas. Full weight, though, was 4,400 pounds going down the track. So basically, it worked out like this. She ran a 10.12, then she ran a 10.13, then she ran a 10.14, then she ran a 10.15. And then by the way, if you go into HRP slips, you can see, just look up car number 1122, and you can see and find all of my slips, all of my time slips from that day. So again, don't forget HRP slips app. Go find me, this guy, car number 1122, and you'll be able to see all of my stats. You'll be able to see my 60 foot, my eighth mile mile an hour, my trap speeds, all of that. So, walking you through some of the passes, I made two hits in the left lane. I spun once, came around with a real hot car, ran again, and the car ran an a 1020. That was like the worst case scenario pass for that car, and it was kind of a throwaway pass. So in tossing that pass, the slowest the car ran, I believe, was a 17, if I'm not mistaken. But the car backed up. Might have been a 16 was the slowest it ran. Anyway, the car backed up all of those passes with like 3 hits that were a 10-14, a 10-14 with a 5, a 10-13 with a 5 that you guys are a part of the ride along with. And then she just said adios with it and dropped the 10-10 on the last pass of the day. Now, the last pass of the day was not the best density altitude of the day. I believe it was negative, call it negative 400 just for the sake of argument. But on the last pass of the day, and my car was the Z was the first car down the track. I was the second car down the track. I was the last car down the track. And throughout the course of the day, my car was, the pivot number on my car, it was trying to run basically a 10-14 pretty much all day long. I think if you averaged all the numbers together, that's about what you'd see. So that was how the day worked out for me. I had a blast, got to hang out with a bunch of great friends, got to catch up with a lot of folks, and got to see a lot of people set either personal bests or set national records, which is always super cool. Let me catch up with you guys, see who all's in. Here we go. Roy saying, good track run. Thank you, buddy. Vortex saying, looks like you had a great event yesterday. It was awesome. Vortex said, congrats, Z. Absolutely. Gary saying, hello. Dad's is saying, hello. Z saying, thank you. Chuck saying, congrats to all the drivers from this awesome event. Absolutely. And again, it's not just the guys that set the national records. We had cars that ran, guys that had really worked on their cars, and let's say they're not necessarily shooting for a record, but some of them seem to have been pretty close. And I don't know all the records that are out there. You start digging into micro records and stuff like that. But I can tell you that Mean Cat ran a string of deep 970s with just a 285 upper car on 93 Octane, which is really spooky fast when you consider that pulley combination for the longest time was considered kind of a garden variety 10-0 type of a combination. But again, he's put a lot of work into that car, and pulleys and wheels, tires, and everything he's needed to do to get that car down. And he could drive the car there and back, not a problem. So that's another one that we saw. Also had a super stock, I think, just about broke a national record. Basically, what more or less amounted to a practically brand new, not broken in, real pretty super stock, getting down into the 10 teens with just a drag pack, basically. So awesome times with that. I know that Orange Crush ran a string of 1024s. That's incredibly impressive considering that car's running around at full weight with nothing but a drag pack and a tune by this guy on 93 octanes. The stock setup just like my car is. Just a little bit heavier, which would account for about a tenth of a second off in the pace of the car. But still, lots of really fast times and really consistent times out of everybody as well. Everybody that was running at Moparmegeddon that were, and this is a testament to just how well these guys know these cars. Basically anything that Z touched would run the exact same time over and over and over again, provided that the owner hit the throttle the same way. All the trucks were running very consistent times over and over again, very close to those national record times. My car would not vary more than about 0.05 of a second throughout the entire course of the day. And, you know, Mean Cats ran basically the same number all day. Orange Crush ran the same number basically all day. So a lot of guys with a lot of experience running these cars extremely consistently down the drag strip had an awesome time and could not have been happier for everybody that was out there. And seems like everybody had a really good time as well. We did have to bump the event up a day, and that did cause some issues with some folks being able to make it, which is kind of a bit of a bummer, to be honest. But man, it's just the way some of these events work. You know, I can control a lot with my car, but I just haven't figured out how to tune the weather yet. So once I get that figured out, then we'll be doing pretty good. But until I can figure that out, we're kind of at the mercy of Mother Nature. And we ended up having what would have amounted to a freaking flood, more or less, today here when the event was originally scheduled. So we had it a day early, which ended up being great. I had just an awesome time. We did run into some challenges, but it had really nothing to do with the way that the track was handled. It was handled perfectly. It's just when it's that chilly. The thing is like, it's not like we had just sun hitting the track. It was overcast. So we didn't have any sun hitting the track to keep the track warm. And we had this wind that was just cold. It was weird. It's like it was colder than what the temperature would have really led on to be. In other words, you ever be outside and you're like, man, it's you know it's really cold, but you don't feel cold. This is one of the days where you're like, damn, it's kind of chilly, but the wind is making it miserable. That's kind of what it was. It wasn't like blowing super hard. It was just enough. So yeah, they were out there dragging and spraying and prepping pretty much all day long. And the results show for it. Like I say, 7 national records got crushed yesterday. And again, congratulations to all you guys. Definite testament to all your hard work and dedication to the craft. So let me check in with you guys a little bit more. Chuck saying congrats to all the drivers for sure. Don Power saying great day. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Callis is asking, is the JLT intake the best out there? I'm now a believer. So let's talk about that JLT intake. Last year, with my car in the identical configuration than what it's in this time around, my car last year ran a string of mid to high teens. It ran a bunch of 12-17s. It ran a bunch of 12-16s. It had 12. Why do I keep saying 12? 10-17s, 10-16s, and it ran one lottery hit 10-12 with, I think, a 7, to be honest with you, which would have been my very last pass of that day. And no, it wasn't the last pass. It was a hot lap on that day. So anyway, the car ran quicker this year in a higher density altitude with the JLT. I'll also, let's hop in the Wayback Machine and go back several months, where my car on a night where it should have run like a 1046-ish, maybe a 1043, went out and dropped a 1038. That was that paper slip that I had. I can't remember if I had shown that. In fact, I think that's either in the car or in the truck. That's the night that the app wasn't working at the track. But we had, the tower was able to give tickets out, and that's with the JLT. If the question is it working? Define work, because I think you're asking, is it making more power? And is it making the car faster? If it is, and this is something that Orange Crush and I were just mulling over today. If it is faster, I would argue that it is quicker, faster, however you want to look at it, by about 3 to 4 hundredths of a second. Call it 4 hundredths of a second, just for the sake of argument. Maybe 5 hundredths of a second, maybe half a tenth. But that's really, really pushing it, I think. The car, 60 foots better with the JLT. The mile an hour is always a little bit different, because the mile an hour can depend on where the trap is set up and how the trap is set up at the end of the track. But I can tell you this, the car was running strong, and the draggy would agree with the numbers that I was running. I mean, it was consistently within about a normal range of what I would consider the draggy to be on versus the drag strip. So there's that. I will tell you that the car was running exceptionally well with the JLT. And it works in another way. It is entertaining as hell to have that thing on the car. I love the sound of the JLT. I love the look of the JLT, and I really like the look of the JLT through the vent in the hood. Just something about that. It's a little bit of a kind of Easter egg for me anyway. And that kind of thing puts a smile on my face. It'll kind of get me excited. So the sound of it, check. The look of it, check. The performance of it, it's never run quicker with the stock airbox in very similar conditions. It's also never been as consistently fast as it was yesterday. With, again, the car's pivot number was that 10.14 number. It was basically trying to run a 10.14 all day, with it running 2 10.13s, 2 or 3 10.14s, 1 10.12, 1 10.15, and 1 10.10. And again, you can really throw the 10.20 out, because that was an extremely hot pass on a hot lap after I had spun trying to prove a point, left lane versus right lane. There's a few things that were going on there that I was trying to get sorted out. And my car is really good because it is extremely consistent. So that wasn't really part of what I was going for. So when you look at it that way and you say, okay, well, last year, with nothing really changed with the tune, I didn't have to change anything. Last year, basically running 10, again, like a pivot number of 10.17. If you go to the channel, like you just pop the channel up, and that first video that pops up, that is a straight right down the middle pass of how that car was going to run on that day. So if you take that and then say, okay, well, it's going to try to run 17s, and this past yesterday at Moparmegeddon 22, it was trying to run 14s. That's at least 300s, right? And with a best pass of the day, if you look at that, it was a 10.12.7, I think, last year, like exactly down to the thousandth that I ran my first pass this year. to a 1010 with a 7, that would at least be a couple of hundreds. Thousands, sorry. So when you look at it from that perspective, I mean, it's definitely worth something. But in this case, it's really worth more in terms of just the theater of having it and just the driving the thing around. It comes out of the hole hard, guys. And I mean, 146, 147, 60 foots were happening. And that car is never 60 footed like that. So, you know, is it making more horsepower? Is it making more torque? Can you even see it on a dyno? I don't know. All I know is when I had the thing at the drag strip, it was faster and it felt stronger with the JLT than it did with the stock airbox. So take that info and gallop along with it. But I like it, and I'm certainly not taking it off my car. Again, love the way it looks, love the way it sounds, and anybody else running 1010s with 93 octane and a Hellcat? Probably not. Chuck's asking, did any demons compete? We did. We had Nick Whitemare. They brought their demon. And Ron Silva brought his demon. So, yeah, absolutely had a couple of demons there. Was there another one? No, those are the only two that I can think of. So, yep. Vortex saying that he ran slower with the JLT stock Hellcat same day. Don't know what to tell you, brother. I've got my thoughts on that, though. I do have my thoughts on that. In looking at the data, I tried to find something that would explain that. Like, why would a car be slower with that intake? I mulled over data left and right. I tried to find anything that would tell me why it would be slower. And I really couldn't see anything. These cars are wideband. So, you would think that you would see a difference in the air fuel. Or at least you would think that it would be adding fuel or doing something like that. And it's not. I mean, my car just absolutely loved the JLT. So, can't tell you, bud. Wish I could. Just can't. I can tell you that a stock Hellcat, though, this is an honest thing here. Stock Hellcat, and this is the caveat that I'll give you guys for the JLT. If you have a stock Hellcat, there's a couple of things working against you with a stock Hellcat. Number one, the fueling is very lean by forced induction standards. It is got an equivalence ratio, which would just be your fuel-air ratio, of 12.77 to 1. That's actually leaner than what a lot of NA guys run their cars at. So there's that. The other thing is that the Hellcat stock timing table, by some estimations, and especially depending on time of year that you run your car, is, and at some air charge levels, is aggressive. So the Hellcat package, in other words, by comparison to a Red Eye, you might consider the Hellcat tune to just be aggressive or more aggressive than the Red Eye from a certain point of view. I don't want to blow your nerd out on this. If you have the ability to adjust fuel or to add fuel, that can potentially make the difference between the JLT working and not working, because the other side to this equation is knock sensor sensitivity. Knock sensors are extremely sensitive on all Hemis. It doesn't have to be a Hellcat variant. All of the Hemis are extremely sensitive when it comes to knock sensor sensitivity. So you take a very lean car with a very aggressive timing curve, at least for what you would consider to be 91 or 93 octane, or at least properly aggressive, not overly, I should say. Couple that with a set of knock sensors that's going to go crazy, kind of a hot tune in general, and then an inlet, an air intake that is trying to bring in more air. It could have been triggering, or you could have been going into knock retard that you normally wouldn't be getting into. But here's the twist. Hellcats basically ride the knock sensors at wide open throttle. So in understanding that, you're almost always with a stock Hellcat going to have at least 2 degrees of knock retard at wide open throttle. With the JLT, a little bit more air potentially coming into the thing. It's already, again, in a lean mixture. Depends on the time of year that you're running the car. Ambient temperatures can affect how knock sensitive the car will be. But blah, 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 caveat, caveat. All of that is conspiring against the JLT to work on a stock car. I know that that's a lot of like jargon, almost jargon thrown into that explanation. But like I say, if you have the ability to tune and you're going to be ramping up fuel anyway, I don't think that the JLT, I think at that point, the JLT is definitely an asset. For a stock car, I don't know that it's possible that because of all of that, the JLT could potentially have a problem. Catalyst, thank you very much. Asking B, what's the most you can take a 6.4 and stroke it out to? 426, 440, or 454? Well, I mean, you can go to 454 for sure. That's, certainly not an issue. Durability may or may not come into play. You got to have really good pistons. Your piston speed's going to be pretty high, but with a 40125 cylinder bore, you can open them up pretty good in terms of stroke, or lengthen them up pretty good in terms of stroke. You got to get windage trays that will allow for the sweep of the crank. You'll be doing some clearancing on the larger bores, but to be honest with you, it really depends on what you're trying to do with the thing. If you're looking to replicate something like Rick's truck, I mean, it's going to take not just the stroker kit, which in his case is a 454, but it's going to take a lot. It's going to take intake, lots of camshaft. It's going to take larger throttle body. You're going to have to feed that thing. If you're talking about a street build, and you're looking for something that's just going to be fun, like to give you a lot of the big block performance or big block power, I really wouldn't go above a 440. 426 is actually kind of the sweet spot, in my opinion. Puts you together a cam that looks a lot like a, 236, 240-ish looking cam. 232, 238 looking cam would be another fun one for that car. If you really wanted to try to leg it out a little bit, you could go like 234, 242, something like that. Bring it in on like a 114 with 109, 108 degree intake center line. And that would be a lot of fun on the street. And, lift, it doesn't really matter. 600, 585, 594 doesn't really make that much of a difference at that point. It just, depends on how aggressive you really want the thing to be. Hellcat lifters, 080 push rods, PSI 15, 16 springs. You could use the stock intake with that, and it would be really torquey, and it would be a lot of fun to drive. If you're looking to build outright power, 440, switch over to a sniper intake, all bets are off at that point. So you're going to go with like a 238, 244-ish looking cam. Intake center line, because you're going to have notch pistons anyway. Intake center line is going to be at about 107. LSA of around stretch it out a little bit. Thytec, ported heads, open it up to about 114 and really make it stretch, or cut it down to like a 112. be kind of tough to tune at that point, but it would have a mid-range hit. It'd probably lift the front tires of whatever you're messing with at that point. So again, it just depends on how aggressive you want to get with it, but they're all viable and they all have a place. They all do work. Just you gotta. It depends on the program for that engine. Let's see. But hopefully that helps. Nixon, what's up, brother? Good evening to me. Thanks for the invite. I was so damn tired, but we had a blast. Awesome, brother. Yeah, man, I'm glad you made it out, buddy. I was really stoked that you were able to make it. Got to see the Demon and the Red Eye. Freaking love that Red Eye. Y'all don't know that. So he's got a Go Mango Demon and a black Red Eye, which is still one of my all-time favorites. Love the look of that car. Black Red Eye is just really pretty car. Runs really good too. But awesome seeing you, brother. Dollar Power saying, great day for Mopar and the professor. Me too. Very cool. Randy's checking in from Middle Tennessee. What's up, buddy? Boosted saying he also ran slower with the JLT the same day. I thought I was the only one. Yeah, man, that's not the first time I've heard that. And again, I understand completely. If you are stock, a stock Hellcat might not be the best setup for you. And again, keep in mind, guys, I've run equally fast numbers with the stock airbox, with the stock filter in the stock airbox. So, again, I'm not trying to sell JLT intakes over here. I can tell you they ain't sponsoring me. But, as far as what it did do for the car, again, I'm able to tune my car and I'm already adding fuel to my tune. That may be why the JLT is working with my car, where I can, honest to goodness, I can see where the JLT on a stock Hellcat might be a bit of a problem. So, but I will say this, the JLT, when you look at the JLT, it's not that far removed in terms of design anyway than what you would find on the newer Hellcats. So, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to try it out. I mean, when you look at the new Hellcats with the snorkel hood, and I get it, it's feeding the thing fresh air. It's feeding the thing fresh air a lot like how the Shaker feeds it fresh air. It's not a ram air thing. It's just getting fresh air to the filter. But if you look at it, it's functionally like if you came down from another planet or didn't know anything about cars and you saw both intake systems, both of them exposed element, one looks like this, the other looks like that, you'd call it interchangeable. And they don't seem to have a problem when they're used on these newer cars. And from what I've seen, the operating system in terms of fuel air mixture and timing and all that really isn't any different from the newer cars to the older. So, is there something else going on in a subroutine that might make life easier for that type of an intake with the newer cars? Something different within the operating system? I mean, I haven't really seen it in the tune, but maybe there is. Maybe there's a multiplier in there somewhere for the knock sensors that is just not coming up as an available PID. Don't know. But I can tell you that, again, if you've got an older, like pre-19 Hellcat, I can see, again, why putting a JLT on there might create a bit of a problem. So I just haven't run into that problem myself. Stewart's in. What's up, buddy? Saying thanks for the great rental, man. Very glad to do it again. Great investment. Something special about Moparmegeddon. Absolutely, brother. Awesome to have you there, man. Very awesome to have you there. As a matter of fact, hang on. Did you set one too? I didn't see you on the list. Oh. I hope I said it. Yeah, Stuart, one of our national record holders. Four-door Ram record. Did I not say that earlier? Four-door Ram record. Yeah, he's on the videos too. 1128 at 118 and a half. Naturally aspirated 5.7, stock bottom end, 4-door Ram. That thing is fast, nasty out of the hole too. And again, I hate to say, the videos don't do them justice. The trucks, when they launch, it's spooky how hard those things leave. And Stewart's truck's no exception to that rule, as you would expect, because again, the guy set up, by the way, crushed a national record. I think Stewart may have had the widest margin from old record to new record being set. Hey, Stewart, what was it, like half a second almost or something like that? Anyway, Stewart just came in and just people's elbowed that freaking record like you wouldn't believe. So pretty sick to death on that deal. So again, congrats, Stewart. Awesome run, buddy. By the way, Stewart's a trooper. So he got there, had an issue with a brake line. So had to get the truck, run over to I'm guessing one of the dealerships or one of the parts houses that had the parts that he needed at like early o'clock on a Friday, trying to fight traffic on the other side in a different town. The only place he could find the dang part was like probably 30 minutes away. Had to run over there, get the part, come back, doctor up the truck right there in the pit so that he could get out there and run. So good job, Stewart. Stewart got out there and got after it and just rock starred his way through that situation. Stewart gets a flex for that one. Good job, buddy. Ken's asking, am I still running 23 pounds of air in the ET Street Rs? Yeah, and so to give you guys an idea as far as the setup pressures and all of that, running the SRs up front at like 80 psi and running the radials. So I would set them at 22 cold, and then once you would do a burnout and get a little bit of heat into them, they would go up to about 24.5 pounds. At that point, they were still hooking fine, had really good track prep, but I kept monitoring it a little bit as the day went on, and I tried to not let it go above like 23 psi. So if I saw them getting a little bit too warm or whatever, I'd kind of chill them out a little bit, bring them back to about 23 psi. The pivot number really for the ET Street R or for the DBR or really any of those types of tires where it's a radial. We're not talking about bias ply stuff here, only talking about the radial. Most of the guys like to pivot that number around 22 psi. So 22, 23. My car does absolutely not like anything less than about 20, certainly not less than 20, but 21 psi it's even not real happy with. It's real happy with 22, real happy with 23. So I'll kind of give you an idea as far as the pressures on those things. Cows is asking, don't you need a tune to benefit from the JLT intake? Man, anecdotally, I would say the answer to that is yes. And for the reasons I was just talking about earlier, hot tune from the factory, lean from the factory, skittish knock sensors, to say the least, from the factory. You know, that JLT, you might need a tune to get the most out of it. And again, you're really not tuning for the JLT, but I can tell you that talking about my car, it did not have any problems with the JLT and was consistently quicker with the JLT on the car than it was with the stock airbox. But again, please remember, I'm running a little bit more fuel in the tune. Timing's really not affected. It blows people's mind. But mainly fuel and putting the knock sensors where they're not completely flaking out all the time with that car. And that's really it. The other thing, and this is one of the questions that I had about it. So the question that you might have when it comes to that type of an intake is, how does it affect how the engine, rather the sensors, how does it affect how sensors communicate to the ECU? In other words, what would happen if you put the JLT intake on the car and for whatever reason, the car thought it was getting less of an air charge? Well, that would definitely change some things up. And you would see it in the tune in the fact that you would show a lower air charge, and you may see that it is adding fuel in the short-term fuel trims to try to make up for the fact that it's showing a lower air charge to the ECU. In other words, the ECU would see the lower air charge and it would deliver a certain amount of fuel, but then it would see, oh, wait a minute, I've got to add more fuel for this particular air charge. And there is, within parameters in the computer, an ability to be able to add or subtract a certain amount of fuel just based on the fact that there's manufacturing tolerances and air tolerances and changes, things like that. So if that were the case, you would see it actually adding fuel and you would see a lower air charge. But where I'm going with this, and you guys that know about tuning know how this works with these Hellcats, lower air charge means higher timing value. So if I were to see an obnoxious timing number or a timing number that really shouldn't be there, I would obviously look right at the air charge. And if I look at the air charge, I already know what the timing is going to be because I'm familiar with what the tables look like. If I look at an air charge, look at that, and then look at my short-term fueling and see that, oh, okay, I'm adding fuel, then yeah, that would be the JLT kind of gaming the system, trying to pull power out of the car by somehow or another tricking it, for example, to throw more timing at it. Didn't look like that in the data. The data, as a matter of fact, looked practically identical to the data from last year when I ran the exact same configuration with the car, and on top of that, had the stock airbox with the stock filter in it. The data, the air charge looked the same. The timing values basically looked the same, and nothing about the data, to be honest with you guys, would, if I were to just not tell you which one was which and show you both of them, you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. I never did with my car, because I didn't feel it was necessary, mess with injector scaling. I just left the stock injector scaling alone. And it is pulling the exact same amount of fuel at wide open throttle with this JLT than it was pulling with the stock tune. In other words, it hasn't changed anything at all in the data. And I went looking for it. In fact, I went looking for it and was digging up old data logs, trying to find anything I could find in my database that would give me some indication as to what the JLT was doing differently than the stock airbox. Couldn't find it. And add to that the fact that the knock sensor voltage across the board was beautiful. The data looked great. The car was running amazingly all day. I couldn't find a fault anywhere with how it was running, what the data looked like, how it compared to data from a year ago. And because of that, man, look, couldn't tell you. Cars just run really, really good. And again, it's done this before. And again, I just say when I went back and looked at whatever the run was from a few months ago, where the car went a 1036, 1038. Again, I don't have the slip in front of me. But it went the number on a night where it really should have gone a 40. The car dropped a 30. And obviously, like we were talking about before, no, I don't think it's worth a tenth of a second, but it might be worth half a tenth. And in this game, you got to remember that at 130 miles an hour, let me give you guys an idea. At 130 miles an hour, a tenth of a second is basically 17 feet, if I remember correctly. It is basically a car length. or maybe it was 18 feet. Doesn't really matter. It's just under 20 feet, okay? That's a tenth of a second. A hundredth of a second at 130 miles an hour is basically 2 feet. And so if you look at it from that point of view, just 2 feet, just for purposes of conversation, that is what the difference, actually it was about 4 feet was the difference, would have been the margin of victory all day long with the JLT versus the stock airbox. If you just use a generic number for a pivot number, you're looking at 4 to 6 feet difference at the end of 1,320 feet worth of acceleration would have been the advantage to the JLT. Now look, if factory durability, reliability, ease of use, maintenance, and all of that is important to you, and you don't really want a really loud supercharger, the JLT might not be worth it to you unless you're chasing a national record and you have tuning capabilities and you have somebody to mull over all of your data logs. You know how that goes. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, again, the difference between last year running 1017, which was like its pivot number for last year, 1017 with a string of 1018 and 19s, by the way, versus this year with the pivot. And by the way, best pass last year was a 1012. Again, I'm almost positive to say it was 1012 with a 7. But that was like a lottery hit. The car was really running 1016, 1017. Again, I think it would be a good pivot number for it. This year, the car was, to be honest, I mean, go back and look at all the time slips if you'd like. Again, HRP slips, and I'm always car number 1122. So when you look at it from that perspective, though, you say, okay, well, and again, you're really starting to cut thin. You know, you're splitting hairs here. But again, you know, that 300ths of a second advantage that the car seems to have now with the JLT intake, which is about what it is. It was really trying to run 14s, and I mean low 14s all day, with the first hit being a 12, a 10-12. The next hit being, I think the next hit was a 13 or a 14. I had 2 13s, 3 or 4 14s, 1 15 and a 16. I mean, the car was really trying to run 14s versus 17s or 18s last year, half a tenth-ish. And that's the equivalent of about 6 feet, practically half a car length at this point. So stock car might not work, but yeah, you might with a tune see some advantage. And again, you go, well, what does that look like, Kate? Imagine losing a race by 6 feet at the end of a quarter mile. And you may have lost that race in the first 60 feet. You got to remember, guys, my car was 60 footing hard, and I don't have the pics with me. I'm an idiot for not bringing them. By the way, the photographer, super cool that the guy made it, was, you know, doing the deal where they frame pictures. I'm trying to get a hold of the guy too, because I want to get some more of these pictures. I'm happy to pay for them. I just want to get the pictures. Thing is that my car was, and if you look at these pictures, there's two of my car launching, and it is dragging the driver's side tire. And I'm telling you, the passenger side is up by like this much. I mean, if the guy would have just been a little bit different in a position, you might have seen light underneath one of those tires. I mean, if I don't know, if he was like doing a zoom in and like you had a piece of paper underneath the tire. I don't know. Anyway, my car is trying to do wheelies. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. I saw how hard the thing was launching. I don't understand how you can have a 146 60 foot and not be dragging the hoops or hanging the hoops. Anyway, the car was coming out of the hole. So imagine losing all the way down the track, JLT stock intake like this. It's like on your mark, get set, go, bye, bye. Second gear, it's like this. And then you hang there. the entire time down the drag strip with the JLT probably inching it out on the big end. That's tough. That's going to be real tough. But I will say this. Did run the car up against Orange Crush. And my car, Orange Crush typically will mile an hour at least as good as my car, maybe a little bit better. And that car and I ran next to each other, which was a disaster because on one run he red lit and on the first pass I spun, which it would have been a really good race. Anyway, long story short, both cars, I think I out mile an hour him by maybe a couple of tenths. Again, I'd have to go back and look at the pass. I was in the left lane on that pass. I might have got, well, no, I take that back because the left lane was reading a little bit differently. But I can tell you that both cars, you know, I was running maybe half a mile an hour faster than him. If even that, maybe a third of a mile an hour faster than him. And some of that came from the fact that the car's just running really good. So I don't know. It just kind of goes back to, you know, does it benefit from a tune? It might only work if you've got a tune. Randy's saying, hit that like button. Someone saying, sub B. Oh, Stuart's saying his previous record was the 11:59. So if his previous record was an 11:59 and he came out and just manhandled it to an 11:28, dude, that's 0.3 of a second, which at that speed is like bus lengths. So, dude, Stewart just showed up and kicked everybody's ass. Buck 53, 60 foot. That is sick to death coming out of the hole. Beautiful. Vortex saying we are having more of an issue with the cats getting hot and running out of injector on a stock Hellcat. We saw this in the data log, so fixing the fueling issues may be making the JLT better also. I can promise you that. And if you're running out of injector with a stock car, that would mean you're running in some deep DAs. And again, yeah, that's 100% an issue because, so what he's talking about, guys, if you're not familiar, when he's talking about the cats getting hot and running out of injector, what happens with these cars, modern cars, is if your catalytic converter, it's an implied or an inferred, I should say, not implied, it's an inferred number that the computer gets an idea basically for about what the temperature is of the catalytic converters. There's not a probe sticking in there. It's an inferred number. So when the computer thinks that the cats are getting too hot, what it'll do is it'll start throwing fuel at the tune. And so let's say your base tune is a 12.7, the stock tune will actually richen it up to the tune of like 10.8, 10.9 to 1. In other words, really rich. Well, if that's the case and you're running in really low DAs, that can be a problem because what ends up happening is you're already running at 94, 93, 95% injector duty cycle, or you can ramp up to 97, 98, 99% injector duty cycle if the cats got really hot or the computer thinks the cats are hot and it starts really pouring fuel at it. There should be enough injector duty cycle limit headroom. In other words, the computer will look at, okay, well, if the injector duty cycle gets to this level at this point, I'm going to have a problem with that. There should be enough in the stock tune, but again, in deeper DAs, that's not always the case. So you technically can run out of injector with a stock Hellcat, which a lot of folks go, what? Nah, there's no way. Yeah, you get that thing in really deep DA, that can be a problem. Oh yeah, and then there's this. Make sure that you are logging fuel pressure. So the reason why I say it like that with like that whole frustration thing is because Hellcats have a single pump, it's a deadhead system, and it pressurizes the system to basically 80 PSI, just south of 80 PSI. Check your fuel pressure. That's another reason why you might be running out of fuel injector. It might not necessarily be injector. It could be that you're running out of a fuel pump. The fuel pumps in these cars can, and absolutely do start to go out. The good thing is that they don't just die, but they do start getting weaker and weaker as time progresses. I know this because I've recently replaced I replaced mine. Orange Crush replaced his, and it came on the heels of me checking my fuel pressure because I was getting a little bit too high of injector duty cycle for what I was running. We decided to check his just as a safety measure because his car runs really good. Haven't had a reason to have to mess with it. And sure enough, his pump was failing. In fact, his pump was failing worse than mine was failing. So, and his is a 2016 with, 20 odd thousand miles on it. Mine is a 2015 with 20 odd thousand miles on it. And sure enough, those pumps are starting to fail. Now the new pumps are fantastic. And injector duty cycle is down at peak power. In low DA, it's down to 96%. And I'm adding fuel to it. So, if you'd say, well, if I had stock fueling, it might be down to like 85%. What would be considered, or 87%, what would be considered fairly safe. But I've also dealt with cat overtemp because I'm already adding fuel to the system. So anyway, long story short, it's not just your injector that you need to look at. And it's, not just, anything. You got to look at the whole deal, but take a look at that fuel pump and log your fuel pump. And if you are getting to no more than about 72 PSI, it's probably a good idea to go ahead and swap the pump anyway. I know a lot of people are going to say, no, you don't have to do that. If you've got a tune in the car, you will have to because you're commanding more fuel and the pump's not able to deliver. A healthy pump will be able to deliver 75 plus all the way across the board, no matter what. And again, you're commanding 79 and change. So. Oh, Mopar, you say Mopar Jim was seeing this also, and just by fixing the fueling issues, ran 10 teens last fall on a stock Hellcat. Yeah, it can absolutely be done, no question about it. Vortex saying actually DA was about 0. Yeah, and that's usually when you start seeing that. And again, take a look at that fuel pump. What's weird is that the fuel pump issue is a progressively declining problem that you'll run into. So just something to think about. Cal is saying, I've been noticing that the cats mid pipes on Hellcats and Scat Packs tend to get worn out quickly from heat. Is there some sort of heat coating you can add to the mid pipes to extend their life? We've never had to mess with anything like that. We're running stock catalytic converters on everything. Oh, Randy's asking about mile per hour, 131 versus 135. What did you change? I was thinking 131 was a little light at the 113, or was it? So last year, the way that the traps can read one of two different ways, or at least that's the way they seem to read. They can either read exit speed, which could be an indication of really where the beam is, the actual mile per hour trap, not the ET, timer trap, but the speed trap. If there's any variance as far as where one is measuring versus the other, you can run into some slight variances with that. In many cases, you're measuring exit speed, which is to say not a trap speed. So trap speed is where your speed is measured twice and the two speeds are averaged together, and that is what your speed trap speed, or your trap speed is. It's your average speed through the speed trap. The other way it seems to work, or at least from what I've been able to find out or notice or whatever, is that you can sometimes have a system where it's only really kind of gathering exit speed, which is your terminal velocity at the end of the quarter mile. It's the way that draggies measure your speed at the quarter mile. And by that measure, the speed could be 135 at the end of the quarter mile, and it could be 129 coming into the trap. So you get an average trap speed of, say, 132, but an exit speed of 135. And that's kind of what I think was going on last year, because it agreed with the draggy, and the draggy, whenever I've run the car, the draggy is always a few mile an hour faster than an actual trap speed. So that's the best answer I can give you, because when it comes to how that thing works at the back half of the track, I ain't an expert when it comes to that. But the ET is accurate. I do know that for sure. Oh, Vortex saying, updated the fuel system with the TAP 1.5 along with ID 1300s and E85 and looking for 9s on stock boost. Should be able to get 9s pretty easily on stock boost. As a matter of fact, on E85, I think the record for stock boost E85 is like a 980 something. It's like a mid 980 or maybe a high 980. So that should be pretty easy. You know, and the funny thing is I've thought of that. The only reason why I've really shied away from E85 is, actually there's several reasons why I've shied away a little bit from E85. One, I don't really want to have to switch back and forth between two different tunes to be able to drive my car. I drive it a lot, or at least for me, I drive it a lot. And I'm not 100% convinced that I want to have to go through the headache of testing E85 all the time. Let me just cut to the chase. I have been burned a few times by E85 fuel quality. And it doesn't take more than just a few times to really frustrate you to no end. And what I mean by burned is not just me. It's been Quick Brick's car. He got burned with bad E85 twice. On the dyno, I've been burned 3, if not 4, 3 times for sure, by going to the pump, grabbing E85 because I've got a car on the dyno that takes E85. I got to go to the pump, grab the jugs, throw E85 in the jugs, haul ass back to the dyno, pump the car full of E85, and start a tuning process, or at least get the car up and running, get it ready, make some baselines, data log or whatever, and then Alex would come in and finalize the tune. Well, it on several occasions make the hit and data starts looking like scrambled eggs, basically bad E85. One of them I caught, actually the last 2 I caught because E85, you can smell it. It smells like, the fuel itself smells like old socks. And all 3 times the fuel smelled like, just by a sniffer test, it's like, yeah, it smells like old sweaty socks. It's E85. But the first time, I didn't notice it, but you can smell E85 in the exhaust. I mean, you just know the smell of E85. The first time I didn't notice that I didn't smell the E85, made a hit, and that's when I was like, oh damn, this isn't any good. The second 2 times I caught it was because I smelled the exhaust. And I went, that doesn't smell like actual E85 getting burned in this car. And it had made me question whether or not, okay, how much did this thing have, like gasoline in it? What is there? Am I just burning off what's in the rails? What's the deal? Anyway, again, blah, 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 cut to the chase, right? I've been burned by E85 on several different occasions, and there's guys that live and die by that stuff, and I'm cool with that. But I like the pump gas option mainly because it's really relatable for guys. The E85 simply is not available in a lot of areas. And, you know, I've heard it, and I can kind of empathize with where guys are coming from. They go, oh yeah, he's on E85. Well, of course he's going to blah, blah, whatever. And it's like, oh dude, okay. Well, look, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to run a 10, like a deep 10 on 93 octane. And if you can catch up with that, more power to you. I don't see a whole lot of people trying. And by the way, I mean, I'm still running stock brakes, stock bumper supports. The sway bar is in the car. Yeah, it's got a drag pack. Yeah, I took the seat out of the thing. But I did that to basically ferry this freaking boxcar load of crap that I had to take with me to the drag strip. So, in the typical normal fashion that guys take these things to the drag strip to try to cover a number, that's what I've done. And it's done pretty well. And again, it's run a string of teens with the passenger seat in the car, with it out of the car. In fact, funny thing is, I haven't noticed a difference, like a right home number difference between having the seat in the car and having it out. So for whatever that's worth anyway, I mean, I've run, well, I'll put it like this. I kind of baselined the car at 0 DA as a 10 teen car at 0 DA with the seat in the car. So I don't know. This is one of those situations where it's like the more you know, the more you think you don't know. And we've looked at, okay, well, pull this amount of weight out of it, pull that amount of weight out of it, do this, do that, do this, do that. We really haven't seen, like, there's not areas where you pull a ton of weight out of the car and end up going significantly faster. I know guys will argue, well, lighter weight brakes all the way around, aluminum bumper supports, and then it starts off from there, right? Way lighter tires, like the beer can style wheels and tire setups. Yank the seats out, put a Kirky driver's seat in it, gut it, strip it, do all that. That's great. Yeah, fine, cool. Thing is I want the car to be about as, I don't know, original as I can get it. Yeah, it's a parts bin car, but what hot rodder doesn't have a parts bin car? I want it to at least be able to, I can take the thing on road trips still, which is what I love to do in that car. I mean, drag racing is not the only fun thing I do with that car. I mean, one of our most fun things to do, my wife and I, is just to go on drives in the thing. So, there's that to consider, and I'm not going to take it out of street car contention just for that. But, yeah, it ran a 1010, 93 octane. What would it run if I ran aluminum bumper supports, lightweight brakes, if I had E85 conversion and put a real aggressive E85 tune on it? I could probably get a low 980 out of that car, honestly. But I would have to significantly alter, and remove the sway bar and do everything, every weight reduction trick you can. I would have to do all of those to get the car to run a significantly faster number. In other words, a full 0.2 quicker. I could do it, but it would no longer really be recognizable as a street car in a lot of ways. I mean, a Kirky race seat, and you start getting to everything else like that. It's like, I don't know that I would really want to take it that far. It's too damn comfy. Not to mention it, you start removing weight everywhere you can. Where do you stop? That's the other thing. And so the way I see it, I stop right where the Demons stop. The Demons had a 1-seat option. I'm cool with that. The Demons had a Demon rear seat delete. Okay, pull the rear seat. Cool. That's a factory option. But when you start getting into race seats and pulling off parts and things like that, you got to stop it somewhere, right? And in my opinion, once you really start gunning it, unless you're like, at some point, you've got to commit yourself to building a car or truck or whatever platform you're messing with specifically to cover that number. And that's a lot of hard work. That's a lot of money. You'd be surprised how much it costs to take things off of your car. I'm too lazy to do it. So, I'll be real happy to run that 1010 in demon prep race conditions, if you want to call it that. Again, parts bin car, I'll use parts bin rules. And, if anybody beats a 1010 on 93 Octane, congratulations. Oh, I was saying, hey, Professor Mason, his younger brother is going to college next fall and he's going to need a car. What do you think about 60s Beetles? Well, they're great. If however you're asking the question, I mean, they're actually a really good car, and they've been a college staple for, the last 50 or 60 years. So, it'll just be another Beetle on campus. I love Beetles. That's one of the things that, name something you don't know about me. I love Beetles. I think they're awesome. And by the way, you can make a Beetle freaking scream. So don't let anybody fool you. Build a 1600cc engine, 1800cc engine for a Beetle, making about 210, 220 horsepower. That Beetle is going to be a nasty ass fast car. So I don't know. That's what you'd end up finding me doing. Vortex saying, my car is a daily and the price is about $1 to $1.50 cheaper over 93, so we'll be running it all the time. Yeah, so just, make sure you're following the protocol with oil changes. And that is really the only thing you got to look at. Make sure you're changing the oil every, no more than about you can probably get away with 2,500 miles with that. So there's that. Also, just remember that you're going to have a 30% lower range than what you have on gasoline. So make sure that you're preparing your fill-ups. When you get down to quarter of a tank, that's not quarter of a tank anymore. That's like you got to fill the thing up right now at a quarter of a tank. So as long as you follow the protocol and keep, map your routes accordingly, make sure you keep the thing full, you'll be in good shape. I know a lot of guys that daily E85, so definitely be done. Haha saying his brother does not like Honda, so a Civic is not an option. Get him an old pickup truck, man. Trucks are awesome in college. 3,500 saying, yo, how you doing? Doing good. Hope you're doing good. Someone saying 68 Beetle with deep fenders is nice. Yeah, it is. Randy saying a couple of channels I watch run E85. It's a pain with them constantly having to check the fuel at every fill up. Even at known good stations, the quality still vary. Yeah, the other downside to E85, which you have to remember, is that it is a nightmare in cold temperatures. If you're running true E85. Now, during the wintertime, E85 isn't E85. It's actually more like E70. In the MEA spec, or the MDS, I should say, the MDS specification on E85 is anywhere from E90 to E70, if memory serves me, is the lowest you can go on E85. So the trick with us is that we would have, 2 or 3 gallons of gas usually in the tank, and then fill the car up with E85 to where you kind of dilute the E85 a little bit so that you're not getting too greedy with timing. See, the thing with E85 that a lot of people don't realize, that E85 is a tuner's best buddy because it does 2 things. One, it's got a high knock threshold, and you can actually do timing sweeps with E85 where you can go past MBT, which maximum brake torque, which in other words, if it's just say you can go past max power. And let's say if my hand is a bar graph, you can go up, find max power, and when it starts coming back down because you've over-timed it, you can just drag the timing back down and you can see the power go right back where it was. Do it all the time with NA cars. Boosted stuff, you can do it too. You got to be a little bit more careful, but for obvious reasons. But you can still kind of get away with some stuff with that E85. E85 is where you've tried to do that with gasoline, you could potentially run into some major problems. But E85 at about E70, anything less than about E60-ish, and maybe even really E50 would probably be the bottom of the basement on this. Anyway, you get to a point where the ethanol just is not as effective in helping to quell knock anymore. And you got to remember that you're talking about E85. Well, it's 85% ethanol and 15% gasoline. Or it's 75% ethanol and 25% gasoline. That still follows in the MDS range. But the problem is you're using gasoline like a generic thing, and it's not. Well, what gasoline is it mixed with? Is it 93 octane? Is it 87 octane? Is it some other gas mix? And everything's just getting kind of blended together to make this octane of whatever it's supposed to be. I don't know. That's why there are companies like Ignite that have a specific blend of ethanol and 93 octane gasoline to get you the higher end ethanol type gasolines. Anyway, you can kind of mind screw yourself with E85. It's not this technical. Well, it is this technical, but it's not that complicated. So the thing with E85 that's also awesome is, aside from the knock threshold, assuming you've got good E85, is that it's an oxygenated type of fuel. The ethanol itself has free oxygen in it once it's broken down by the combustion process. So you get power through the oxygenation of the ethanol or the breakdown of the oxygen out of the ethanol, the denaturing of the alcohol, so to speak. But you also get the bump in terms of the knock threshold. A lot of people try to talk about the cooling effect. The thing is that there's just not enough time for enough of a delta to take place there. You're injecting it right at the port. But in the combustion chamber, there may be cooling that takes place in there as well. You got to remember you're running 30% more fuel mass in that cylinder. So it's going to affect heat in some way, and usually it's in a good way. Is it a big difference? It's enough of a difference to call that as well. So really you got three things that it's doing. Again, it's a wonderful product. I just, in terms of what it can do and for the tuner and for the car, again, just please make sure that you stick to the protocols with oil changes and things like that, and you'll be in good shape. And also too, don't try to get greedy. I mean, the pivot number on timing for E85 cars is usually, I'll put it to like this. I could add at least 3 degrees of timing to a stock Hellcat and be well within a safe range. Now, that works provided that you are, because of knock threshold, not at a timing value that achieves maximum brake torque at any specific RPM. So what that basically means in plain speak is that if, say, for example, at 5,000 RPM with gasoline, you're limited to, 15 degrees of timing because of knock threshold, but the car would run best at 20 degrees of timing, then E85 will get you to your MBT number in terms of timing. So it doesn't add power. It just allows you to run a number that will make the max power for your combination. For whatever reason it makes it there, that's what it does. NA cars are a little bit different because NA cars on corn, unless they've got obnoxiously high compression ratios, camshafts being equal, of course, but unless they've got really obnoxious compression ratios, you don't really run into an issue not being able to achieve a timing value at MBT with most of the more modern engines. The Mustang's a little bit of an exception because, again, of compression ratio and the fact that it's got a continuously varying camshaft. So there's reasons for all of that. Oh, Randy's saying ran the 6,500 horse or 65 horse pancake engine in the Baja Bugs for playing in the mountains. Nice. And Kimball saying, hey man, it's my first time seeing your channel. Should I sub to you? Yeah, sub. Tell your friends, like, subscribe, hit that button. Sovereign saying, what's up? Got the Coke. The reason why we're doing Coke Zero is because my local ran out of my Pepsi Zero. The nerve, right? So, yeah, they ran out of Pepsi, so, which is weird because Coke tastes funny to me now. Oh, Deem's checking in with Kimball. Thank you for the kind words, my friend. Oh, Chuck's talking about E85, saying logistics is too ridiculous here in his state to run Echo. My performance shop can sell it to me, but it's a 40-minute ride there. It doesn't make sense for me to do that. And that's the problem, man, with the E85. So, and this is, okay, so because of that problem, a lot of guys will say, look, now I'll just tune it on race gas, or, I'll just throw Boostane in it and tune it on Boostane. That's not a good idea either. You can have a race gas tune, or you can have a dedicated Boostane tune or whatever. But here's the thing. I do like to use Boostane, but I use it for a completely different reason. Boostane does a really good job of fixing problems with fuel quality with 93 octane. You guys remember when I did the impromptu fuel test when I had to fill up at a Bucky station, which normally is pretty decent gas, but in data logging the car, I was getting knock retard when I absolutely should not have gotten knock retard. How did I fix that? Well, I had a full tank of gas, wasn't going to drain it or anything. So I think I added 2 or 3 ounces of Boostane. I think it was 3 ounces of Boostane to a full tank of gas. And lo and behold, and I think I even mentioned this in one of the shows, it did kill the knock retard issue that I had. So it at least worked in that respect. But I also use it to maintain octane levels in Foxy and in Sierra. So, and in the Camaro. I got all kinds of contraptions around here that need to have decent octane rated fuel in the tanks. And the ethanol based fuel, if you have something that sits for any length of time, will start to degrade a little bit, and the Boostane just basically keeps the octane rating up. But I would never tune anything for it, and I would never tune a car for Boostane or any fuel additive, a gas mix, or like a race gas mix or something like that. I wouldn't even think to do it, because what happens if the person that you put the tune together for, what happens if that person just doesn't add the Boostane, which we know works, but it only works when it's oddly enough in the gas tank. The same goes with race gas. Also, race gas tunes have a nasty habit of, or owners of cars with race gas tunes, or, whatever family of race gas tune that includes Boostane or whatever. They have a nasty habit of forgetting to switch the tunes over. So then they put in 93 octane fuel. You've gone in and tried to put a tune together that's going to be fairly aggressive with fairly aggressive knock sensors. And now all of a sudden you've got a knock issue or whatever is going on. It's not uncommon for stuff like that to actually happen. And it's just human nature. People forget to do this stuff. It doesn't mean somebody's a dummy. It just means that some smart guy did kind of a dumb thing and forgot to switch the tune over. Well, So that leads credence to somebody going with a straight E85 tune. You might say, well, why is that? Well, because if you're on E85 with a Mopar, you're on E85 pretty much forever until you decide you're not going to run E85, and then you put it back on your gasoline tune, and then you just drive it around blissfully on gasoline. So there's no getting around that. It's a little bit more of a, I don't know, there's a little bit more of a, things that you're doing when you're living with an E85 car versus a gasoline car. But the biggest issue again, and I mean, I got to tell you, not only does Chuck bring up a pretty good point, but the fact of the matter is that not everybody can get their hands on E85. And by the way, race E85, it ain't cheap. So just remember that coming into the equation. It's about the same cost as race gas. So, it's definitely not for everybody. But if you're looking to cover a number, or you want the peace of mind to know that you've got a really good fuel in the car, well, an E85 is incredibly hard to beat. And if it weren't for me being so stubborn or so snobbish about it, or as gun shy as I am, or whatever the combination of those things are, that I'm just whatever hangups I've got about E85, I'd already switched mine over. It's not like it's all that difficult to do. And I could definitely get away with it making more power. But, at this stage of the game for me, it's really more about convenience than anything else. And I can switch tunes, fill up with 93, do all of that. It's just, it's got to be worth it to you to go through all that, because that's pumps and injectors, and that ain't cheap either. So I get it. You got to pay to play, but the idea is still the same. Some are saying, oh no. Oh, Vortex saying, I know 85 in for everybody. I have 2 stations less than 3 miles from the house, plus all around me. And that's the main thing. If it's that convenient for you, like you can just basically, if you can treat it like gasoline, like it's gasoline convenient, you kind of be silly not to go with the 85. I mean, the added power, I'll put it to you like this, over even my car, an E85 tune, let me think about this for a minute, would be worth about, it'd probably be worth about 40 horsepower at least to the rear wheels. And that 40 horsepower could maybe turn into 50 depending on how hard you wanted to turn that thing up. So, if you've got really good E85 and you don't mind running 22, 23 degrees of timing in the thing. So just kind of a thought there. And that's those timing figures in, for a Mopar, which is really high, can be really high. Oh, hey, Roy, thank you very much. Saying he's never taken a Scatty to the track. Do you think I need a helmet? I know you'll need a helmet. You'll absolutely be going faster than 13s, which means you will absolutely need a helmet. 3,500 saying, yo, what's up, man? What's up? Someone saying, don't let a bad tune make your engine go boom. That's so true. And I'll tell you something else too. And this is where gasoline guys have to be careful. So the problem with gasoline tunes is everybody wants more power. Everybody wants to show something on a dyno. But the reality is that these cars are already pretty hot from the factory, and picking up a lot of power is not really, it's taken a back seat to transmission tuning and drivability, torque modifiers, things like that. Spark modifier. There's a lot of things you can do to the car that doesn't necessarily come from throwing a bunch of timing at the car in terms of getting power. Yes, you're still adding timing, but you're doing it from a different perspective and for different reasons. But you've got to be careful with this. And with gasoline, when you have a bad tank of gasoline, you can't really recover from it the way you can with even, how do you put it, marginally good E85. So for the guys that are running gasoline, you've got to be careful with timing. And I'll just tell you that I don't get real aggressive with timing. Yes, I adjust timing, but it's more of an interpolation than it is just a generic, spread of adding timing across a timing table. And I do that because, again, I've got so much R&D on fuel testing. Over and over and over and over again have I tested fuel, knock sensor sensitivity, based on where I'm getting fuel. In other words, knock sensor voltage, I should say. In other words, knowing what my knock sensor sensitivity is, knowing what the voltage is, and looking at knock retard. I've done so much of that I've learned that I don't trust gasoline either. So, I mean, it's not like, the point that I'm trying to make here, and I am really just butchering this, but the point that I'm trying to make here is that, I was talking about E85 and going, man, look, I don't trust E85. I don't trust gasoline either. I just don't trust E85 more than I don't trust gasoline. However, a bad tank of E85 is usually better than, significantly in some cases, better than a bad tank of gasoline. And again, to walk you guys back through it, I was getting 2-3 degrees. I wasn't getting 3. I was getting, well, maybe I did get 3. I got at least 2 degrees in change of knock sensor or knock retard. And it was validated through what I was looking at with my knock sensor voltage with just kind of a questionable tank of gas. So again, that's why I was like, well, here's a good opportunity to see if Octane will chill this out. And it did. And I didn't have to use a whole lot to get it there either. But again, for you guys that are concerned about fuel quality and whatnot, just please take my advice on this. And you'll save yourself on this. Just don't tune your car for a race gas mix. Don't tune your car for a Octane fuel adder or anything like that, because I can assure you, you're going to have a really cold DA, a really low DA. It'll be a really cold day, and you'll forget to put the race gas in or whatever. You won't switch tunes, and that's when things go really bad really quickly. So just trust me on this. I've seen it happen. The problem is I've seen it happen too many times for me to say, it's just kind of a fluke. Dummy, haha, you screwed up. Man, I don't even go that. I don't even take it that way anymore. It's, man, look, somebody just forgot to switch the tune, or they thought they did switch the tune and it didn't, or they didn't, or whatever. And then you pop a ringland on it. By the way, Hellcats are extremely difficult to injure. Engine-wise, they are built like a flippin' tank, guys. And to that point, 6.4s are too. With a good tune, 6.4 handle a ton of power, but it's just the idea that it's just one bad tank of gas away from potentially being an issue. That's why I'm so adamant about the conservative side of things and not tuning for, additives or race gas blends. Roy's laughing. Jay Casey's asking, hey, can you explain the red eye tune? Fuel air enrichment table is zeroed out, so fuel air adder for COT enrichment is 0. How does that work? Fuel air max enriched table does have values, but how do you get to that table? I don't have my computer sitting in front of me. Usually I'll be scanning through it when I'm starting to go through it. So I'll have to tackle that on another video. Like I say, I'd rather have my computer in front of me so I can walk you through the differences. But I'll have to circle back around on that one, man. But you're talking about engine overtemp enrichment tables. There's about a bazillion of them in there. But yeah, I'd have to have it all sitting in front of me. But the cold adder, no, that won't be in it. You're looking at the EOT, I think is what you're asking about. But again, like I said, I have to see it. Chuck said, oh, the kit's $900 including labor. Sovereign saying, my car specifically says it does not support E85. Yeah, tell me about it. There's in the tune, there's an operating system adder that you can have for E85 in HP tuners. But you have to tune it specifically for E85 for any of that to work through HP tuners. So I'll tell you this. You can tune the car for E85, and there is provisions also in the tune for flex fuel. I just don't know of anybody that's actually pulled it off yet, other than having and I freaking cannot remember the name of the company. Something engine, anyway, that uses the GM sensor that's basically a plug and play type of a deal where you can run E85 and it will automatically adjust. It's like a piggyback. It'll automatically adjust the injector duty cycle to work with E85. And you can tune it for large, and you'd need to tune it for larger injectors, but you'd really need to have a larger pump. And one of the things that really kind of screws me up on that kit is the way that it's built. It's like you can just throw the thing on a car and you can run E85 with it and get all the benefits of E85. You can't. If it's the same one that I'm thinking of, that one, yeah, you can run E85 on the thing, but you would have to have a tune that would allow for, well, a different set of injectors, and you would have to have a tune that is going to allow for more timing. So you'd still have to have all your injector data. You'd still have to have all of your fuel system in a state of, basically you have to have twin pumps, the whole bit, to make any of that work. So I don't know. I'm on the fence a little bit with that, but it does use the GM sensor, which is really the right way to do it. Vortex asking, do I add any octane booster at the track? No, straight out of the pump. That's the thing. Here's the thing. As long as the fuel quality that I'm seeing is good, then I don't want to add anything to my gas tank. I would rather it just be straight 93. If I make a few hits with the car with that tank of gas and I see knock retard, it's rare for me to get any knock retard out of this Exxon station that I use, or a Shell station or anything like that. But if I've had to get gas somewhere else, the first thing that I'll do is I will make a couple of hits and see if I've got any knock retard. And if I do, then absolutely it's getting butane added to it. But no, I would prefer to not have any butane or anything in the tank at the drag strip if I can get away with it. So I'm saying the 6.2 I hear is solid, extremely solid. Oh, let me get back to the butane question. So I said that, but I will not waver from my recommendation to run butane in the tank as an insurance policy. If you're going to the track and you know you're going to have really deep DAs, if you have any question in your head about the fuel quality that you have in terms of gasoline, throw a couple of ounces in the tank. I've seen butane be effective at as little as 3 ounces for a full tank, like 2 to 3 ounces for a full tank. And I know that a lot of the guys that run more aggressive pulleys on 93 will run 3 ounces to half a tank of gas. But that's about the most I think that you would need to correct fuel quality. If you feel like you need to go above and beyond that, if you want a higher octane for whatever reason, it's not going to make any more power. It's just going to be a little bit safer in terms of knock resistance. And at that point, I've got a chart, believe it or not, I've got a chart literally sitting right here. This is the one that I did for you guys a while back. That is the butane versus race fuel. That's when I did the cost analysis. And when I put this chart together, I did the octane basically based on 5-gallon and 10-gallon shots. So you can see how many ounces you would need. And basically to get octane to what you would guess to be about, at least according to the can, 98, that would be, let's see, that would be right at 5.5 ounces to 10 gallons. And you'd use 3 ounces to 5 gallons. So if you're mixing it in a jug, like here's a tip for you guys. If you guys are into doing other kind of power sports, things like that, you've got the 5-gallon jerry cans, and you're concerned about fuel quality, or you're gonna be beating on something like a dirt bike or whatever all day long. If you want to get to 98 octane in your jerry can, you can just mix in like basically 2 3/4 ounce of butane into that jerry can, and you'll have what they're claiming to be is 98 octane. I don't know what, how accurate that octane, like that specific octane number is. And again, I made that chart just to kind of give me an idea at what point do you start running into a situation where race gas is actually cheaper than running butane. See, the thing is, what people don't realize is that if you want to run a, if you wanted to try to get to like 104 octane, you would have to pour in 10 gallons, you'd have to pour 2 full cans of butane into the tank. If you want to get to 102 octane, you would have to run, in essence, in a 10-gallon tank, an entire can of butane. 100 octane gets you down to basically 9 ounces for 10 gallons. In other words, basically an ounce per gallon to get to that 100 octane number. And that 100 octane is kind of a magic number for guys. That's what the demon guys would run, and that's what would allow them to trip the high octane mode. And the demons was running enough butane, basically running about 10 ounces or 11 ounces in their tank. So at least anecdotally, the stuff works. But again, don't tune for it. If you're going to use it as an insurance policy in really crazy low DAs, or, if you've got jet skis or a boat or something like that you're going to be beating on, or, something that maybe sits and you need to use an additive in the same way you'd use a fuel stabilizer. In this case, it's like an octane stabilizer. Cool. And if you're going to the track and you're worried about fuel quality, yes, run it. But I would choose to try not to, usually. Francisco saying, if you have a question, I have a 2017 Daytona 392 and it shakes bad. It said it had a random misfire and it told me to change the spark plugs and ignition coils, and I did it all and it still shakes. Figured I might know. So what could it be? Well, check motor mounts first. That could potentially be an issue. If it's shaking that badly, I'm assuming that there's other codes that it would have thrown, because normally that would be a pretty solid indication of some things that are going fairly wrong. Plugs and coil packs for sure, but check motor mounts. Let's see, what else could cause it if it's shaking like that? Vacuum leaks could be another issue. So check for vacuum leaks as well. That'd be where I would start with it. Oh, Randy said, I mentioned the change from regular to E85. My mom's Monty is dual fuel. Fuel mileage with E85 drops by 2 to 3 miles per gallon. She claims it doesn't run as good also, less power. with E85, that's kind of interesting. Well, maybe they're just not throwing a lot of timing at it. Chuck's asking, doesn't it make your plugs run too hot running higher octane? No, it doesn't. Not at all. Not at all. A lot of people get that. There's a lot of wives' tales when it comes to octane burning slower and things like that. That's not necessarily the case. The flame front propagation on 93 octane versus 87 octane or 84 octane, there's no real difference in the flame front propagation. In other words, the burn rate doesn't really change. Gasoline is gasoline. The only difference between one gasoline and another is its resistance to knock, and that's typically due to different fuel additives that are mixed into the fuel from the fuel manufacturer. So, that's why, that's how butane kind of works. It's an additive for gasoline to make it have more resistance to knock. So, no, it's not going to make the plugs run any hotter, increase combustion chamber temperatures or anything like that. I mean, if you're beating on it more because you've got more of a cap, then maybe that would cause it. But no, it by itself does not do anything like that. Sovereign saying, many people think that adding 89, 81 to their car that uses 87 gives them more power. It does not, which is very true. The higher grade fuels are meant to resist detonation under higher compression, which is true. I'll put it to you like this, guys. The only time, and this is where you can get some sleight of hand going here. The only time 89 or 91/93 does better than 87 in terms of making power is if the fuel quality of the 87 is just bad, or the fuel quality at the gas station is just not that good. Then the 87 may act like 85 octane, the 89 might act like 87, and the 91 or 93 might act like 89. That's about the only time that the higher octane gasoline is going to do better than the 87 in any application that the car is designed for running 87 solely is in that scenario. Now, I will say this, some cars, like in trucks, like the Ram, especially the 5.7, you can run it on 87 octane, that's not a problem, but best performance is on 89 and up. And if you've ever data logged a Hemi going down the road, you would see clearly the fact that it is riding knock sensors like you would not believe with 87 octane. So in that respect, yes, you can get more power out of it by switching to a higher grade gasoline, but primarily because the engine is dealing with 87, but it's really, the timing tables is really more set up for 89. Sovereign saying 87 using higher compression engines will pre-detonate before it's meant to, causing shock to the cylinder. It causes all kinds of problems. And I mean a lot of problems. And the other thing is that, a lot of guys will say, it's got a conservative tune. You know how many conservative tunes that basically start to tulip exhaust valves? It's a bad thing. The reason for that is they just don't run any timing in them, and you have really high exhaust gas temperatures. Bear with me, guys. Hang on just a second. Scroll back through here. Hang on. Jay, we'll catch up with your tuning question on the next one when I've got my computer and I can actually walk you through all of that. Fuel adders are kind of a funny thing because most of the time, unless you're switching injectors, you really don't have to mess with too much of that. I actually try not to dive super deep into some of those issues, because most of the time you don't need to mess with it unless you're switching over to E85, which can be a complete train wreck, by the way. Oh man, by the way, I am worn out. Yesterday, just awesome day, but dude, lots to do. And it's funny, you know, these types of days, you know, you wait all year and the day comes and then it's gone. It's like, what? But guys, with that, Randy's saying, sorry, I had a hard time convincing my ex to stop buying the highest octane available. Blaming Shell advertising. I can understand that. Chuck saying, thanks for answering my questions, B, and sharing the race footage. Got to go. See you on the next. Very nice. Sovereign saying, Racer X said he was at the races the other day. He was. Check out his video. Yeah, he was definitely there with the Mustang. Car ran good. Car ran well enough to where this is, okay, so this is a situation where, you know, I always say turbos are kind of a cheat code. In this situation, it actually kind of hurts, because if you don't have enough converter to get the car into boost at launch, one of the problems that you run into is that when the car does come on boost, if it comes on boost late, it can come on boost in this kind of situation on a cold track where the track's kind of cold, and it can, anyway, cause some problems. So I think might have been happening to Racer X, but he'll be able to walk you through all of that in his video, so tune into his show to check out what he was up to. White Knuckles asking, what about a few gallons of race gas mixed with 93 compared to Boostane? He's asking, is that a better way to go? And they seem to both be good. I can tell you that what most guys would run as a mix is like 3 to 4 gallons of Sunoco 260 GT, which is 100 octane. Most guys will go with something like that, as opposed to if they're a hardcore race gas mix guy, as opposed to putting in, you know, a small amount of Boostane, which I say a small amount. You're looking at a cost, because it's about $1 per ounce, by the way, for Boostane. So if you're running 10 gallons, you're looking at roughly $10 worth of Boostane versus $24 worth of race gas to get not anywhere near the same effect. But for most cars, most of the stuff you're going to be dealing with today, you don't really need any more than about 96 or 98 octane anyway. And Boostane is just so much less expensive, and it does seem to work. So guys are using it. Now, you know, what's better? What's better is just running straight 260 GT. I mean, that would be ideal. But that gets real expensive real quickly. As a matter of fact, 260 GT, let's see if I did the costing on this. It's been a while since I messed with it. Yeah, it costs you about $150 to fill up, well, at least on a 20, I think it was a 20-gallon deal with the race gas. So it's to get to that 100 octane number, in other words. So it's a big difference. But some guys just don't like the Boostane. They don't like the idea. They don't trust Boostane. I've done enough testing with it to where I'm pretty confident with it. And, you know, when in doubt, like if you're putting 5 gallons of gasoline into something, you know, if you go with 3 ounces for every 5 gallons, you're definitely going to be good with Boostane. 2.5 is probably a pretty good mix too. Basically 5 ounces for a full tank of gas. You know, that'll get you more than enough octane bump. And I think you'd be able to do that safely, again, because I know the Demon guys have done it. And in my testing, it's fixed tanks of gas that were sketchy, to say the least. Who's that guy saying? My man. White Nose saying, does the orange it turned the plugs hurt anything? Boostane, that is. No, but my understanding, you've got to run a lot of Boostane to start to discolor plugs. But no, nobody's ever had any, I mean, I've never heard of anybody having a problem with that at all. So, and by the way, that's not why I don't use it with my car. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just trying to run numbers on, you know, just pay at the pump gasoline. So, you know, again, if I've ever had to use it, it was because I was data logging fuel and I didn't like what I saw. And I happen to know that Boostane will fix it. Also happen to know that if I go to the gas station right up the street, typically that causes the fix to happen too, which is just having good quality gasoline in your tank. So let's see here. Bust through here real quick, guys. White Nose saying, thanks for the info, Brian. Thank you very much. And with that, guys, we're coming up on 2 hours. I am going to jump off here. I just want to say thank y'all very much. I want to say congratulations to all of the new record holders from Moparmegeddon. Rick, Matt, I mean, just absolutely, these guys crushed it. Jason with the outright title, Kyle with his NA title, Stuart with the NA 5.7 four-door. You know, again, guys, y'all did an awesome job. Congratulations to everybody. And thank you guys. Appreciate y'all hanging out. Check out the videos, I should say, that I posted. I've got one of my car. You've got some flyby videos, some other fun stuff. But the main thing is check out the trucks. Like I say, they just swept the field for national records. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So appreciate each and every one of you guys. Love each and every one of you guys. Would not do this without you. You're going to send it, don't bend it, keep your shiny side up. Ray, miss you, love you, brother. Do something cool for somebody, will you? And that is a wrap. Y'all have a good one. Adios.